"We're realigning the organization to better serve long-term investor goals," he said flatly during our 5-minute meeting. "Your role is being eliminated, effective immediately." My name is Ryan Callan. For 14 years, I built the Midwest division of StraightAsWare from the ground up into its most profitable operation. Not with flashy slide decks or office jargon. With relationships, reliability, and real work. I managed every key client myself. I knew their pain points, their kids' names, their favorite baseball teams. Those relationships alone brought in $4.7 million in annual business. The new CEO, Graham Ellis, had been with us a total of 7 weeks. Stanford MBA, slick haircut, custom Italian suits. He'd never once asked me how we hit 19% year-over-year growth while other regions struggled to break even. He never asked why First Horizon Trust or Atlas Healthcare insisted on me for quarterly reviews. Not once. When security escorted me to box up my office, I noticed Marla from HR couldn't even look me in the eye. She'd been at StraightAsWare longer than I had. Jonas, our CFO, walked past, slowed, then circled back. "Ryan," he started, then stopped himself. He just patted my shoulder and kept walking. I packed in silence. Family photos. A bass fishing trophy gifted by the Atlas team after our last retreat. A handwritten card from Emily at First Horizon, thanking me for expediting uniforms before their big inspection. 14 years distilled into one cardboard box. I nodded politely to the guards, walked to my car, and drove off without a word. No drama. No threats. No final speeches. In the rearview mirror, I watched the shimmering glass of StraightAsWare HQ fade into the skyline. For the first time in 14 years, I didn't feel the pressure of managing 30 people or securing multimillion-dollar renewals. I should have felt free. But it felt wrong. When I joined StraightAsWare, we worked out of a converted garage in Des Moines. We were scrappy, barely surviving, just trying to win uniform contracts with regional clinics and local banks. The Midwest division was bleeding money when I took over. I had 8 reps and a challenge: fix it, or shut it down. So I hit the road. For the first 3 years, I personally drove to every potential client within a 100-mile radius, learning what their past vendors got wrong. Late shipments. Inconsistent sizing. Terrible customer service. I fixed all of it. Our team grew from 8 to 27 people. We upgraded from that garage office to a proper space with meeting rooms and white boards that didn't squeak. I promoted Rita from support to account manager after watching her diffuse a furious client with nothing but patience and facts. I hired Malik, fresh out of design school, when he showed me uniform prototypes that solved problems we hadn't even identified yet. When I joined StraightAsWare, my son Ethan was just 11 years old. Now he's 26, living in Denver, designing skyscrapers. My wife, Samantha, supported me through every late-night, last-minute flight and weekend emergency. "It's all part of building something that lasts," I used to tell her. And she believed me. I had worked under 3 CEOs before Graham. Each one respected what we built in the Midwest. StraightAsWare grew from a small regional player into a national competitor. And our division was the one leading in both growth and retention. But then came the acquisition. Solara Partners bought us out, replaced the board, and slowly started pulling levers. I wasn't worried, at first. I believed in numbers. And our numbers were bulletproof. But the cracks started forming. Then came Graham Ellis with his efficiency consultants and color-coded spreadsheets. They talked about client acquisition cost in meetings, but not a word about client trust. 2 weeks before they let me go, Graham asked for a full breakdown of our major accounts. I built a detailed report: contract values, renewals, growth forecasts. But I didn't include the things you can't graph in Excel. Like how I stood with First Horizon's procurement lead at her father's funeral. Or how I personally checked the Atlas Healthcare shipment at 2 a.m. to make sure the embroidery matched their launch colors exactly. When Graham's assistant booked a 10-minute meeting on a Thursday morning, I knew. I'd seen it before. Just never thought it would be me. The morning after, I sat in my home office, phone silent. No calls, no emails. Just silence. Samantha walked in with coffee, squeezed my shoulder. "What's going through your mind?" she asked. "They don't even realize what they've broken," I replied. I wasn't mad. That surprised me. What I felt was clarity. A sharpness I hadn't had in years. I opened my personal laptop and went to my contacts. Not the company CRM. My own records. Names. Numbers. Personal emails. 14 years of genuine connection. The first call came at 9:30 a.m. It was Diana from Apex Financial. "Clayton, we just got a mass email from StraightAsWare about some leadership transitions. Please tell me you're not involved." I paused, took a slow breath. They let me go yesterday. The silence said more than words ever could. Who's handling our account now? She asked. They didn't say. Probably someone from Graham's new team. Another pause. Longer this time. We've got our renewal coming up in 6 weeks, she said finally. Clayton, I need to be honest. Our board only stayed with StraightAsWare last cycle because of you. Your quote was higher than 2 others. But you delivered. You fixed things before they became problems. You were the reason. I said nothing. In the background, I heard the quiet tap of her pen on the desk. A habit she had when weighing a hard call. I need to talk to my team, she added. Can I reach you on this number? Of course. After the call, I went downstairs and sat at the kitchen table. Samantha was prepping lunch. You okay? She asked. I nodded. I think I will be. My phone buzzed. A text from Malik, our design lead. Graham just called an emergency meeting. Asked who has client contacts for your accounts. No one's giving him straight answers. What's going on? I set the phone down. Later that afternoon, Harold from Vesta Properties called. Then Michelle from Crest Bank. Then Jason from Northline Health. Every conversation followed the same rhythm. Concern. Questions. They wanted to know about their renewals. About who was stepping in. About what happened. I gave each of them the truth. No drama. No bitterness. Yes, I was let go. No, I hadn't been told about the handover plan. Yes, I was weighing my next move. By 6 p.m. I had 5 missed calls from Graham Ellis. I didn't return any of them. That night I opened my laptop. Not to track accounts. To explore options. I built a new spreadsheet. Not of clients. Of possibilities. Companies that had tried to recruit me over the years. Competitors who might value experience over spreadsheets. Even the idea of launching a consulting firm of my own. For 14 years I had built bridges for StraightAsWare. Now, I had to decide whether to cross one, or build my own. I chose the latter. 3 days after I was let go, Graham's texts turned into phone calls. I let them go to voicemail. On the 4th day I finally answered. Clayton, we need to talk, he said. His voice was tighter than it had been in our last meeting. Some concerns have come up. Key accounts are unsettled. I kept my voice neutral. I'm sure your team can handle it. That's just it. Apex is threatening to pull out. They're saying the only reason they renewed last year was because of you. I watched a cardinal land on the feeder outside my office window. That's their decision to make. There was a pause. Look, Graham said, maybe we moved too quickly with the restructuring. The board is concerned about potential revenue hits. We're open to discussing a consulting arrangement to smooth the transition. For a moment I considered it. It would be easy money while I figured out what was next. But something about the offer felt off. Too quick. Too desperate. I appreciate the offer, I said. But I need some time. I'll think about it. That afternoon I met Jerry Campbell for coffee. He'd been StraightAsWare's CFO before the merger. He was also pushed out quietly. Jerry still had contacts at corporate. Graham's in full-blown panic, Jerry said, stirring his cup. Apex and Vesta both sent formal notices. They won't be renewing. Did they say why? Loss of key relationship personnel. Leadership instability. Basically corporate lingo for, we trusted Clayton and now he's gone. I nodded. It was a strange cocktail of validation and worry. Pride in the trust one had built, concern for the team I left behind. There's more, Jerry added. Graham told the board you're sabotaging the company. Claimed you're calling clients, convincing them to leave. I set my cup down. I haven't asked anyone to do anything. I've just answered when they called. Yeah, well, that's not how Graham's spinning it. He's trying to build a case. Said you might have breached your termination agreement. Could even try to claw back your severance. On the drive home, Graham called again. I let it go to voicemail. Later that night, I listened. His tone had completely shifted. Clayton, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We value everything you've built. The board has authorized me to offer you a senior VP role. Bigger title. Better package. Let's talk. I stared at the phone. He wanted to pull me back in. But for the first time in 14 years. I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. We were supposed to discuss. But that evening someone else called first. Daniel Thompson. CEO of Summit Ridge Outfitters. Smaller company. Tried to recruit me twice before. I heard what happened at Northrise, he said. Their loss. My offer still stands. Then he paused and sweetened the deal. Senior VP, equity stake, and full control over your client relationships. I told him I needed a few days. There were still too many moving pieces. Too many voices trying to pull me in opposite directions. That night, another one joined the chorus. But not with offers. An email from Northrise Legal. Subject: potential violations. The tone was clear, threatening. They were accusing me of violating non-solicitation agreements, implying litigation if I didn't immediately cease interference with company relationships. I didn't reply. I just forwarded it to Paul Henderson, a lawyer friend I trusted. No comment. Just the facts. By morning I had my answer. Paul called early. "This legal threat is paper thin," he said. "They're trying to scare you. But I pulled your contract. You never signed a non-solicitation clause." I sat up straighter. "What about the non-compete?" "Standard. You can't join a competitor for 6 months. But there's nothing stopping clients from choosing to follow you." My mind jumped back. 14 years ago. Different building. Different CEO. He'd looked me in the eye and said, "This just keeps folks from learning our systems and jumping ship the next day. It doesn't stop people from trusting you." Trust. That's what it came down to. And now that trust was moving and they could not control it. "So," I asked Paul, "I've done nothing wrong? Legally?" "Not a thing. And if they push this, you could push back." Abrupt termination. No transition plan. Senior leadership being dumped with no cause? Courts don't love that. I thanked him and ended the call. Just as a new email hit my inbox. From Janice, someone still inside Northrise. Subject: "You should see this." Attached: an internal presentation. Dated 2 weeks before my termination. Brandon's fingerprints were all over it. Complete restructuring. My position: marked for elimination. Performance? Irrelevant. His plan? Replace experienced staff with recent grads. Raise prices on long-term clients by 15%. And on slide 12 in bold, relationship-dependent model presents risk. Transition to system-dependent model to maximize margins. They hadn't fired me because I was underperforming. They'd fired me because I was overperforming. In a way they could never replicate. Because I had built something real. And they had no idea what to do with it. Once I was gone. Their spreadsheet vision. That was the phrase. But what shook me more was the list below it. Targeted terminations. Janice. 3 others from my division. All marked for removal. After I was gone. I printed the slide deck. Sat at the kitchen table. Stared at the quiet dismantling of everything I'd built. Jennifer leaned over my shoulder, read in silence. Then finally said, "They were planning to erase it all. And blamed the fallout on me," I added. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Brandon. "Board meeting tomorrow. Need to discuss reconciliation ASAP. Please call." I didn't. Instead, I looked back at the final slide. Revenue projections, 22% margin increase. All based on one assumption. That the clients would stay. Despite reduced service. Despite higher prices. Despite gutting the relationships we'd spent years building. It was a house of cards. So I picked up the phone. And called Daniel at Summit Ridge. "I'm in," I said. "On one condition. I want to bring 5 people with me. My core team." He didn't hesitate. "Done. When can you start?" 2 weeks. "And I'll need offer letters, for all of us, today." That night I made 5 calls. Janice. Then the others. I told them everything. The restructuring. Their names on the list. The offer from Summit Ridge. All 5 said yes. Immediately. I slept better that night than I had since the day I was fired. I didn't return Brandon's calls. Or his emails. Instead, I reached out to our top clients. Not to poach. Just to check in. Lunch with Diane from Suncoast was first. She barely waited for the waiter to arrive. "We're not renewing with Northrise," she said. "The question is where we go next." "I can't solicit your business right now," I told her. "Legally, I have to be careful." She smiled. "Understood. But hypothetically, if you were somewhere else, offering similar services, we'd be very interested in following you." By week's end, I'd had 5 of those conversations. 5 major clients. All saying the same thing in their own way. Not one had heard from Brandon. Not one had received a call from anyone at Northrise. They hadn't even tried to hold on. Meanwhile, Summit Ridge made it official. Offer letters sent. One by one, my team resigned from Northrise. The following Monday, Brandon showed up. Unannounced. I was in the garage working on my old Chevy, when I heard the tires crunch onto the driveway. I wiped my hands, looked up, and there he was. standing in a $90,000 suit, looking completely out of place. Like a man who just realized he'd lost the one thing he never knew how to lead. Mercedes, we need to talk. Brandon's voice cracked with urgency as he stepped out of his car and into my driveway. Clayton, he said, anxiety all over his face. This has gone too far. The board is breathing down my neck. Key team members resigning. Clients threatening to leave. I wiped grease from my hands with a rag. Sounds challenging. You're joining a competitor, he snapped. That violates your non-compete. I nodded toward the truck, keeping my tone calm. Summit Ridge isn't on the restricted list. Paul Henderson confirmed it yesterday. His voice rose a little. You're talking to lawyers now? Clayton, be reasonable. Whatever they're offering, we'll beat it. I closed the hood of the Chevy with a thud. It's not about the money, Brandon. It never was. He stepped closer, more desperate now. Then what do you want? Name it. I looked at him, for the first time since that day. I wanted respect. For 14 years of building something that mattered. I wanted a conversation, not a 10-minute dismissal. I wanted my team protected. Not lined up for elimination to make your spreadsheets look better. His face shifted. He realized I'd seen it. The plan. The list. That was just a draft, he stammered. A scenario planning exercise. Goodbye, Brandon. I walked past him toward the house. He called after me. The board will fight this. We'll sue you. We'll sue Summit Ridge. Everyone involved. I stopped at the steps. Turned. You can try, I said. But before you do, ask yourself one thing. What's going to cost the shareholders more? Letting me walk away quietly? Or a public legal battle explaining why all your top talent and your biggest clients disappeared at the same time? He didn't answer. Couldn't. A week later, I started at Summit Ridge. 2 weeks after that, my non-compete period expired. And within a month, 4 out of 5 major clients from Northrise had signed with us. All of them asked for me by name. I never called anyone else at Northrise. Never spoke badly about them in public. I didn't need to. The results spoke for themselves. 6 months in, I was in my new office, reviewing quarterly numbers, when Daniel knocked on the door. You might want to see this, he said, setting a tablet on my desk. The headline hit first. CEO Brandon Kerr steps down amid financial shortfall. The article explained it all. Northrise had missed earnings projections by 18%. The Eastern Division, my old territory, had seen nearly 40% of its revenue vanish. The board had finally acted. Daniel smiled. I figured you'd appreciate the full circle moment. I nodded, eyes still on the screen. Not bad for a guy they tossed out without a meeting. Brandon's resignation had been accepted. Effective immediately. I handed Daniel the tablet back without a word. He raised an eyebrow. You don't seem surprised. I shrugged. It's hard to build loyalty from a spreadsheet. Later that afternoon, a message lit up my LinkedIn inbox. Thomas, Northrise's CFO. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss recovery strategies. Your name came up. Would you consider a conversation? I didn't reply. Instead, I polished off the quarterly presentation for Suncoast Financial. Our team had delivered their new corporate uniforms 2 weeks early. The feedback? Overwhelmingly positive. Diane had already referred us to 2 new contacts in her network. Momentum was on our side. The next day my phone rang. Jerry Campbell. Thought you'd want to know. Kestrel Group is trying to sell off Northrise. He paused. The stock's down 22% since you left. Who's buying? That's the thing. No one. Rumor is the board's trying to get in touch, off the record. They think you're the only one who can stabilize the client base. I thanked him. Went back to work. That evening I took my team out for lunch. 2 quarters of solid growth. Something to celebrate. Keith pulled out early sketches of a new product line. Janice shared client feedback stats. Best we'd seen yet. We talked expansion. Branding. New hires. No one mentioned Northrise. Not once. That night, a name popped up in my inbox I hadn't seen in years. Eleanor Barnes. Chair of Northrise's board. Clayton, the situation is untenable. We made a grave error in judgment. Would you consider returning as CEO? Complete autonomy, significant equity, board seat. Name your terms. I closed the laptop. Did not respond. The next morning I called a meeting with my team. I've been approached, I said plainly, about returning to Northrise. I wanted you to hear it from me first. I'm declining the offer. Keith gave a knowing nod. Figured they'd try. Janice smiled. Too little. Too late. I nodded. We're building something better here. That afternoon I sent a short email to Eleanor. I appreciate the offer, but I must decline. I'm committed to my current position. I wish Northrise the best moving forward. 3 days later, the headline broke. Summit Ridge Outfitters acquires Northrise Apparel's Eastern Division in strategic asset purchase. No rescue. No dramatic return. Just a clean acquisition, one that brought everything full circle. The part they thought they could cut away turned out to be the heart of the business, and we took it with us. The press release called it a strategic reunion. Key talent reconnected with long-standing client relationships. What it really was: a rescue mission done quietly, efficiently, and for pennies on the dollar. Daniel had negotiated the deal behind closed doors. What once was Northrise's crown jewel, its Eastern Division, was now ours. The board had no choice. Sell it to us or watch it die. I never had to strike back. The market did it for me. Exactly 1 year after my termination from Northrise, I found myself driving past the old Eastern Division office. The Summit Ridge logo now hung where the Northrise sign used to be. Same building. Different heart. Inside, we had rehired some of the people who'd been let go under Brandon. Rebuilt relationships they thought were irreparable. 3 more major clients had returned, on their own. Under Summit Ridge, the division was more profitable than it had ever been. I parked across the street. Watched employees filtering out at the end of the day. Some faces were familiar. Others new. But they all looked the same, energized, engaged, proud. That evening when I got home, Jennifer was in the kitchen making dinner. I drove by the old office today, I said. She looked up, reading my face. Nostalgia? Or closure? I smiled. Closure, I think. She nodded. I remembered. That's why I made your favorite tonight. Over dinner, Dylan called from Seattle. Excited, his firm had just landed a major architecture project. How's the new job going, Dad? I paused, then gave the same answer I'd used for 14 years at Northrise. Good. I'm building something that will last. Only now, I knew I finally meant it. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A message from Jerry Campbell. Gravora Group just acquired what's left of Northrise. Clean sweep. Nothing remains of the original company. I set the phone down. Stepped out onto the deck. The spring air was warm, filled with quiet possibility. I thought about Brandon, for a moment. Wondered if he'd learned anything. I doubted it. I thought about all the late nights. The missed birthdays. The sacrifices we'd made building bridges for people who never valued them. But then I remembered. The bridges held. Even when the company didn't. Because we had not just built spreadsheets. We had built trust. And when everything else collapsed, that's what followed me. Not because I asked, but because they believed in what we built together. And now, we were building something better. Authenticity. Built together. Felt deeply. No spreadsheet could capture it. No restructuring could erase it. The next morning, I arrived at Summit Ridge early. The sun hadn't even crested over the ridgeline yet, but the office lights were already glowing. I reviewed our quarterly projections. 30% above target. I pulled up the client retention report. 97%. The highest in company history. Daniel stepped into my office. Board approved your proposal, he said with a grin. Employee ownership program launches next quarter. I nodded. Keith and Janice? Heading up the implementation team, he confirmed. They'll do it right. Daniel leaned against the doorframe. His voice softened. You know, when this all started, I thought we were just getting a talented exec and some solid client contracts. I didn't realize we were getting a whole different way of doing business. Relationships over transactions, I said. Always. After he left, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk. Tucked in the back, still wrapped in an old conference program, was a small, scuffed fishing trophy. A parting gift from Vector Properties back in a different life. I dusted it off and placed it on the shelf, right next to a framed photo of our Summit Ridge team, grinning wide at the launch of our newest product line. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need vindication. What I needed was clarity, the chance to build something real, something that could endure. And this time, I had.